Hello, Virgo. Do you understand what it means when someone shows your photo to their mother, not to a friend, not to a colleague, not to the casual orbit of people who occupy the peripheral spaces of a person's life and who receive the ordinary updates of what is happening without being the holder of the deeper material that a person shares only with the people who matter most to how they understand themselves and their own life and what they want from it, to his mother. The person who knows him in the specific and accumulated way that only a mother knows a child, with the history and the context and the particular kind of love that sees not only who someone is now, but who they have always been and who they are still becoming, even when the becoming is not fully visible to anyone else, including sometimes the person doing the becoming. He showed her your photo, and her reaction changed everything. Welcome, and let me tell you what that means. In the full and complete form of everything it is. Before I tell you about her reaction, I want to tell you about the decision to show her, because the decision is as significant as the reaction, and perhaps more significant in terms of what it tells you about where he is and what is happening in him about you. He made a decision at some point in the private and unwitnessed interior of his own mind that you were someone he wanted her to know about before he knew what she would think, before he had any guarantee of what her reaction would produce in the dynamic between you or in what he was building toward. In relation to you, he made that decision on the basis of what he already knew about what you are to him before any external confirmation of the validity of what he was feeling had arrived from the person whose opinion matters most to him, in the particular way that a mother's opinion matters about the person her child has chosen to bring into the intimate circle of his life. Whew. What that decision tells you is this: he was already certain, before the certainty was confirmed by someone who matters enough to be shown the photo in the first place. He was already certain enough about what you are to him to want to share that certainty with the person who knows him best and whose knowing of him has shaped everything about how he understands who he is and what he wants and what kind of person belongs in his life. In the permanent and central form that a mother knows her child is looking for, even when the child does not always articulate it clearly to anyone other than her. Now I want to tell you about the reaction, because the reaction changed everything. And I want you to understand how and what it changed and why the changing of it matters for what is now moving toward you from the place of what the reaction produced in the interior of the person who showed the photo and receive the reaction. That changed everything. Her reaction was not neutral, not the measured and careful response of someone who is withholding judgment until more information is available, or who is managing their response into something that neither encourages nor discourages the thing they are being asked to respond to. Her reaction was immediate and warm and specific in the way that a mother's immediate reaction to something her child brings her is always more informative than her considered response would be, because the immediate reaction is the honest one before the managing of it into whatever form seems most appropriate has had time to arrive and shape what is expressed. I want to describe what she saw in your photo. That produced the reaction that changed everything, because she saw something that is worth naming clearly. So you understand what produces this kind of reaction in a mother when she looks at the person her child has chosen to bring into the intimate circle of his life. She saw someone who is real in the specific and undeniable form of someone who is genuinely themselves, rather than the performed version of themselves that people sometimes present when they know they are being seen and evaluated by someone who matters to the person who matters to them. The photo showed who you actually are in whatever moment it captured, and who you actually are is the kind of person that a mother recognizes immediately as someone good, not good in the surface and presentable sense, of someone who knows how to appear well in contexts where appearing well matters, but good in the deeper sense of someone whose goodness is genuine and visible even in a photo to someone who knows what genuine goodness looks like from the inside of having lived with it and raised it and watched it move through the world over many years of watching. She recognized something in you that she has been hoping he would bring home for longer than she has perhaps said to him directly in those exact terms, but that she has been holding as the standard for what she wanted for him from the person he would eventually choose to share his life with in the full and permanent form. Oh, I want to pause here and speak about what it means to be the person that a mother recognizes as what she has been hoping for her child, because I think this is the most significant part of the reaction that changed everything, and I want to give it the full weight it deserves. A mother's hope for her child, in terms of the person they will love, is one of the most considered and complete forms of hope that exists in human relationships, because it is built over the entire lifetime of knowing her child and seeing what makes them flourish and what diminishes them and what they need from a person to be the fullest version of who they are, rather than a constrained or unhappy version that the wrong person or the wrong kind of connection would produce. She has been watching him his entire life in the accumulated and layered way, that produces a kind of knowing that is not available to anyone who has not done that specific watching over that specific period. And what she has learned from all of that watching is what he needs in a person to be who he is supposed to be in the fullest available form. And when she saw your photo, she saw someone who could give him that in the real form, rather than only the apparent form that not everyone she has encountered before in association with him has been able to offer in the genuine and sustained way that her watching of him has taught her he actually needs. You are what he needs in the form that she can see in a photo, because the genuineness of it is that visible to someone who knows what she is looking for, and has been looking for it for him for a long time. When her reaction arrived in the way it arrived, because changed everything is a strong claim, and I want to honor it with the specific description of what is different now than it was before the reaction. What changed in him is certainty, not the uncertain hope that was present before in the form of what he felt about you, without the external confirmation of someone who's knowing he trusts more than almost anything. The certainty that he already had internally has been confirmed externally by the person whose confirmation was the one that was going to matter most when it arrived, because her seeing of you is not separate from her seeing of him. It is the most direct available evidence of whether what he feels about you is grounded in something real. That the people who know him best can also see, or whether it is only visible to him in the private and possibly distorted form of feeling that is not yet confirmed by the witness of someone who sees clearly, without the distortion of the feeling itself. She confirmed it without distortion, and the confirmation has settled something in him that was not quite settled before, in the complete and resting form of certainty that has been witnessed, and therefore is no longer only his, but shared between him and the person whose sharing of it matters most. I want to speak about the 1111 because it is in the title, and it is not decorative. It is a signal that the timing of this message arriving for you and the timing of what the message is describing are connected in the specific way that aligned timing in the spiritual dimension is always connected to the larger pattern of what is unfolding in your life. Right now, 1111 is the signal of alignment of things that were moving on separate tracks, finding the same moment simultaneously. And the finding of the same moment simultaneously producing something that the separate tracks could not have produced without the convergence. What is converging in this moment is his certainty her confirmation and your arrival in his life as someone whose photo is shown to mothers rather than kept in the private dimension of something not yet ready to be brought into the circle of people who know him most completely. That convergence is what 1111 is marking. In the timing of this message arriving for you and of what the message is describing, arriving in his life in the form of a decision being made that the convergence has produced. I want to speak now about the ring emoji in the title because I put it there deliberately and it is doing something specific that I want to name honestly without overstating or understating what it is pointing toward. The ring is not a promise. I want to say that clearly. This reading is not promising you a ring. In the specific form of a proposal on a specific timeline from someone who has arrived at a specific decision, that will produce a specific action on a specific day. The ring is a direction. The specific direction that the convergence of his certainty and her confirmation and your presence in his interior world as someone whose photo is shown to mothers is pointing toward in the natural and unforced movement of something that has found its direction and is moving in it without yet having arrived at the full form of the destination that the direction is pointing toward. The direction is toward permanence. The specific permanence of someone who has decided that what they want is not the temporary or the casual or the convenient form of connection with you, but the lasting form that requires the particular commitment of someone who has shown your photo to his mother and received the reaction that changed everything and is now moving in the direction that the showing and the reaction and the certainty they produce together point toward, whew, I want to speak about what happens in a man when the two most important women in his life occupy the same moment, even if only through a photo, because that convergence is what is producing the direction I described. And I think understanding it will help you understand what is moving in him right now and how significant the moving is. When a man shows the woman he loves to his mother, and his mother sees her and reacts in the way that changes everything, something settles in the deepest part of his decision making that was not settled before in the complete form. It is now settled in, not because he needed her permission, but because her seeing and her reacting completed a picture that was being assembled from multiple sources of knowing, of which his own feeling was the most important, but not the only one, that he was waiting to hear from before the picture could be called complete. Her reaction completed the picture, and a completed picture in the interior of someone who had been assembling it from all available sources is what the direction forward is built on in the specific and decided form. That produces action rather than continued consideration of a picture that was not yet complete. The picture is complete, and the action that a complete picture produces is what is moving now toward you from the place of someone who has his certainty confirmed and his direction clear and his picture complete, and give you something to hold. In the period between this message arriving and what the message is describing arriving in the full and visible form of someone who has moved from internal certainty to external expression of what the certainty has produced in terms of decision and direction and what he wants to build. With the person he showed his mother and whose reaction changed everything. The thing to hold is this: you have been seen by someone who matters, to someone who matters to you, in the form of your actual self, captured in a photo and shown to the person whose seeing matters most, to the person who showed it, and she saw you, and what she saw was good enough and real enough and everything enough to produce the reaction that changed everything. In the person standing next to her, holding the photo and watching her face as she saw you for the first time, I also want to speak about what this means for how you move through the coming period with him and with what is building between you, because knowing what has happened and what it is producing in him in terms of direction and certainty requires something from you in return. That is worth naming directly. Be present in the full and unguarded form of the person he showed his mother, and that she reacted to in the way she reacted, because what she saw was the genuine version of you, not the performed version, or the version that was managing itself for the benefit of someone whose approval was being sought, but the actual version in the full and unmanaged form that produces the reaction that changes everything in someone who knows what they are looking at. Be that person in the coming period as things between you develop toward whatever form they are developing toward, in the natural and unforced movement of something that has the confirmation it needed and is now moving in the direction that the confirmation pointed toward, in the specific and meaningful way of something that has been witnessed and approved and called good by the person who's calling it good. Matters most. You are called good by the person who matters most to the person who showed her and whose reaction changed everything. And it is significant in the most complete sense of that word for where this is going and what it is building toward, and what the 1111 is marking as the moment of convergence of everything that has been moving toward this You are the person he shows to his mother and whose reaction changes everything. That is not a small thing. That is perhaps the largest thing that can be said about the place someone occupies in another person's interior world and in the forward movement of their life and in what they are building toward the version of their future that they want most. You are that person for him right now in the specific and confirmed way that her reaction made undeniable, even to the parts of him that were still holding something in reserve before the confirmation arrived in the form of her face, seeing you for the first time and knowing immediately what she was looking at. Receive that in the full and complete form of something real that has been confirmed by someone who does not confirm casually or easily, or without the particular weight of someone who has been waiting to see what her child would bring her in the form of the person they had chosen to love in the full and lasting form of someone who is shown to mothers and who changes everything. When she reacts the way she reacted when she saw you, he showed her your photo and everything changed. And now,